So now let's start answering some of the questions. So first question is, so the entire genome or the book of you is contained inside of, so the cell. And this is just very easy because I know that if you, maybe you remember this from high school, you know that if you watch the video that it will be that your genes, as you are eukaryotes, yeah, you have a nucleus and all the genes are inside of your nucleus. The cell wall is something different that is in plants and is the when the cells is covered by another structure outside that is will be the cell wall. The mitochondria is the one in charge of producing the energy of the cell, the respiration, and the lysosome is in charge of digestion of some molecules. So definitely the only answer it will be the nucleus. Okay, now let's go through this one. It is estimated that all the chromosomes together house around 2,000 individual structures called. So the answer here, if you remember the video, it will be genes. Here, in the video, they talk about that base pairs. They will have millions of base pairs. Yeah, so this is wrong. And if you remember, the DNA is formed of it has base pairs, and we will talk more about that later. The chromatophores, this chroma is related to color, and it's another structure that is not related here. Yeah, not related to genes. And lipids is a macromolecule. It's a big molecule of living organisms that is not related at all to genes. So the only option possible is genes. Okay, now if you want, you can read this one. Okay, now the answer here will be transcription. And if you remember one of the videos, okay, and so if you remember all the things that you learned in high school, so there are the three key processes. The one is replication, transcription, and translation. Here we are just talking about the last two, about transcription, as you can see here, and here you can see translation. And so transcription is the process by which the information in a DNA strand is copied into a messenger RNA. So as you can see in this schematic, here you have the DNA, and this is copied into a new molecule that is the messenger RNA. Here you have this messenger RNA that later we can talk more about the technique, this technique, uh, new technique that they use to produce the vaccines of Moderna and Pfizer using messenger RNA. And although I said new technique is not as new, for example, with fruit flies, I have used messenger RNA hundreds of times, so it's something that we already have done multiple times. So remember, transcription, very important, goes from you copy the DNA and turn it into messenger RNA. Now the next step, translation, that is the process of translating the sequence of messenger RNA to a sequence of amino acids during protein synthesis. So remember, you have now the messenger RNA here, and now it goes inside of the nucleus and produce these molecules called proteins, and this process is called translation. So again, translation is the process of translating the sequence of messenger RNA into proteins. Okay, now in this question, they ask you that in the video you just watched, the author said that there are more cells in the human body that there are, and the answer is D. here starts in the Milky Way. So if you remember the video, here they said that there is more number of cells. There is approximately, depend on the different studies, but more or less around 30 trillions. And there are less stars in the Milky Way. That is an insane amount still, 100,000 millions. So answer will be D. Now, in this question that is very easy, that it could be in the test, how many chromosomes does the human genome contain? So if you remember, humans we have 23, but as they come in pairs, so we have 23 pairs, so it will be 46 chromosomes. So this is the answer. The answer will be in this case C. And if you remember, the DNA look like this, in the 3 dimension. These are the nucleotides. It doesn't look as good, but the idea is that as um, the DNA start increasing and getting longer and longer and longer, in order to protect it, the idea was to pack it in the proper way. And the chromosomes, what they are doing is trying to pack the chromosome so you don't lose information. So how they pack it, they use these proteins. And the DNA is wrapped around this, and you wrap it and wrap it around, and you form this structure called chromosomes. Yeah. So in other words, what they are doing, if you have work with yarn, definitely this would be terrible. You cannot do anything with this type of yarn. You will take hours to disentangle it, to remove these tangles. And here, what you have to do is pack it in the right way. In biology, the same thing happens. So to copy the DNA, and every time that your cells have to divide, they have to copy the DNA. So what they do is pack it in the right way, and the right way was using proteins, and the right way is in these structures called chromosomes. So remember, chromosomes are a thread-like structures located inside of the nucleus of animals and plant cells, because these are eukaryotes, and each chromosome is made of proteins. So here, in this case, the proteins will be this orange, and a single molecule of DNA that you can see here in blue. Last thing, something that is very interesting is that although we think that humans are so complex, so they will have more chromosomes, that is not correct. Actually, humans are not the animals or plants that have more chromosomes. Humans have 46, but for example, chimpanzees have more. We are very close to the amount of chromosome that a mouse have. And for example, chickens or dogs have more chromosomes, and some type of plants like ferns, they can have hundreds of chromosomes. Yeah, so remember, here it doesn't mean that they have more or less genes, that just that they are packing the genes in different ways. So again, 46 in humans, as this diagram shows here. 46. Now this question. Every cell of every living thing on Earth contains all the information that it needs to create and duplicate and make variation of. So the answer here will be itself, or it can be also to produce of their protein. So if you remember, we said that you have DNA, then later we can create RNA, and then you can create proteins. So every living organism, what it's doing is producing copies of their producing DNA, producing proteins from their DNA. And why they are doing that? To make a copy of themselves. Copy of themselves. Okay, so it doesn't look very pretty, but so either one of these answers I consider that is correct. It could be itself or proteins. Um, None of the above. So sorry, sometimes here it should be say none of these options. Uh, just that sometimes if I forget, remember to replace it. Here is none of this option. Any other kind of cells. This doesn't make sense. And red blood cells. This uh, this is this is not the right answer. They actually the red blood cells are very interesting cells that they lose their nucleus when they mature and they don't have a nucleus, so they can carry more oxygen and they don't have problems with the nucleus. But in the beginning they have DNA, so it's a very interesting example. But the red blood cells is not the right answer. So B and D are the correct ones. And why? Because we said that we have DNA that is going to form proteins, and these are going to create copies of the entire organism. Okay, now transcription in biology refer to which of the following process? So the answer here will be E, the synthesis of RNAi. So as we watch here in the previous slides, when you copy the DNA into RNA, it's called transcription, and when you take this RNA into and translate it into proteins, it's called translation. And just to remember, when you have a eukaryotic cell, here you have a nucleus. So the transcription will happen in the nucleus, while in prokaryotes, in the one that they don't have nucleus, like bacteria, this will happen in the cytoplasm. So definitely replication, no, because replication is to copy DNA into DNA. The synthesis of proteins, this will be translation. Translation, synthesis of DNA this will be replication. It will be replication. And metabolism of sugar is to break into small, to have, when you have large sugars, so many molecules of sugar, and the metabolism is going to break it or to make it or less complex, or to and make break it into small pieces of sugar, or it can go in the other direction. So definitely this is not a transcription, so the only potential possible answer will be E, synthesis of RNA. Now this one, the translation is the process where, so this is very easy, where messenger RNA is encoded to form a protein. So if you remember this video of your textbook, the person, here they explain that. And A is not possible. Messenger RNA is created in the nucleus. This will be more the transcription, is where lipids are synthesized. This is not true. Translation, it doesn't have any relationship with lipids. And glucose translation is a process where glucose molecules are made. This is not true. The glucose are made in other process. So the only option will be C. That is, the messenger RNA is decoded to form a protein, and this process is called translation. And I already showed you some schematics talking about that. So if you have any doubt, you can watch again the videos, or you can go to the Tumble Biology and read more in detail about that. Okay, this is also very easy. The 4 different nucleotide parts called bases are made of, so carbon and oxygen, hydrogen atoms, nitrogen, and phosphorus atoms, or all of them, all of these options. If you see here, the nucleic acids are polymers called polynucleotides. Poly means many, so many nucleotides. And each nucleotide, so you see you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are many more. They have many more. Each one is formed from a phosphate group, a pentose sugar, and a nitrogenous base. So they have a nitrogenous base and pentose sugar and a phosphate group. And here you, for example, you can see carbons and you can see hydrogens. So the correct answer will be, if you see carbon and oxygen atoms, so here you can see an oxygen, you can see a carbon, so this is true. Here you can see a hydrogen here, the H means hydrogen, nitrogen and phosphorus. So here you can see the phosphorus, and these nitrogenous bases means that they have nitrogen too. So all of these one are true. So the right answer will be D, all these options. Okay, adenine always pairs with, so this is very easy. So it always pairs with thymine. Yeah, this is silly, but this is the only way that I remember. So with a little bit of mnemonic, so I always remember A and T come together. I remember that in my computer there is this. When I look at my computer, I see this that I press a lot this keyboard called Alt. So AT go together always, and I remember that G and C go together because I remember this guy of Geico, because they go G and C. And you can use our mnemonics, or if you find a different way to remember it, you can remember it. So remember, A and T always go together. And you can even do one exercise, something that it could appear in the test is, if you remember this AT and GNC, I can give you a template strand. So for example, so you have this A here and the complementary of this one. I can ask you the complementary of each one. So complementary of in the DNA of A is T, so A here is T. The complementary of T will be, we said it will be A. The complementary of G, it will be, we said a second ago, C. And you can continue like that. So I can ask you one of those questions in the test. Okay, let's go with this one. In DNA, cytosine always pairs with, so very easy, cytosine always pair. And if you remember the guy from Geico, so it will be G always will be with C always with G. So here we don't have the G, so it will be none of these options. Yeah, none of this. So as we just saw a few seconds ago, G always go with C. And as I told you, this could be one of the questions for your test. Now let's move to the next axiom.